So in general, there are more baptisms in Spanish branches, and I feel like that's because the Hispanic people are more humble than other cultures are. I did not baptize an investigator until 9 months into my mission. I thought that I would have one. Thought I would baptize someone sooner than that. I didn't always have great success with finding and teaching Titan people, especially in the United States. I felt like it was kind of like, where's Waldo? But like, where are the Hispanic people? So you have to just like, if we were new to an area, we would sometimes just drive around and try to figure out like, where was ghetto enough to have like the Hispanic population living. I know that sounds bad. So we would drive around and try to find trailer parks and older apartment complexes. Asking for referrals from members is one of the best ways to find new investigators, and you'll hear that over and over again on your mission. That's just stressed over and over, and that goes for Spanish speaking or English speaking or any language speaking. Working with members is the best way. In our mission, we were allowed to tract and go door to door. And so a lot of people we ended up teaching was through just not going to the trailer parks and knocking on everyone's door. It was a cool experience because I was able to, we found a lot of Hispanic people that way, but not only Hispanic people live in trailer parks, so we were able to talk to all different kinds of people. So the majority of people I talked to were from Mexico, and then the second biggest population were people from Guatemala. And it was actually really interesting. There was one city I served in that there was a whole neighborhood of like native Guatemalans that most of them didn't speak Spanish as their first language. They spoke a dialect, and then they learned Spanish in the United States. And like the women would like wear those like native skirts and carry their babies and like in the cloth and stuff, and that was really cool. So most of the people I talked to in the poorer areas were illegal immigrants. And it was really saddening to hear people's stories. A lot of these people, most of the people come to the United States because there is no work in Mexico or in the country that they're from. A lot of times I would talk to dads who had left their family behind and would send money back to Mexico. And these dads had been in the United States for 10 plus years and didn't see any didn't see themselves returning home anytime soon because they were supporting their family, and they hadn't seen their family in 10 years. And so I was humbled really fast talking to these people and realizing what hard circumstances they were in. Because most of them were illegal immigrants, it was a struggle. They lived in fear of being caught by the police. They couldn't work a lot of jobs because they were illegal immigrants, so they had to work construction and gardening and dishwashing and all the lower end jobs that they could get. They would, but at the same time, I don't know harder working people. They came to look for jobs, and they work hard to support their families. They make incredible sacrifices for their families and for their friends. I learned that, I thought I had done hard work in my life previously, but just hearing and talking to them, I realized that I didn't know what hard work was, and that they really did. So I love Hispanic food so much. I mainly ate Mexican food, and like the Mexican staple food is beans, rice, and then corn tortillas, and some kind of meat, and then green salsa, and it's so good. I could eat it every day, and I almost did eat that every day, and it was amazing. I didn't really have to eat too much spicy food, which I liked. I thought I was going to be eating all kinds of spiciness, but I didn't, and that was good. So I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to eating spicy food still. I was exposed to spicy food, just not as much as I had originally thought. I remember my companions thought it would be fun to eat habanero peppers, just whole. That was just a bad experience for them. Both times it happened, I just watched because I knew it wouldn't be good. As far as culture and teaching of the Hispanic population, so most of them are Catholic, and most of them believe in Jesus Christ and also the Virgin Mary, or the Virgin Guadalupe, which is like a version of the Virgin Mary. But a lot of them just believe that. They don't really practice their religion. So I found that you couldn't just go in and assume that they had that because they were Catholic that they believed, like really understood their religion. You have to start from the basics. I also learned a lot of things that made sense in English didn't necessarily translate over super well into Spanish. At one point, our mission president wanted us to invite everyone that we talked to be baptized. So whether that person was on the street, like, or whether we were knocked on their door, or whether that person was breaking leaves in their yard, we would go up to them and talk to them, and then lead the conversation to the point where we could invite them to be baptized. And that in itself was really an interesting experience because it caught a lot of people off guard that we were inviting them to be baptized by someone holding the authority of God. But in Spanish, the invitation to be baptized is longer than it is in English because of how it's translated. And so a lot of times it would just go over people's heads. Like we would say it and then people would just look at us like, wait, what did you just ask? And then it never went over. So it didn't go over well a lot. So you'd have to simplify some things. I mean, things like the baptismal invitation, it's important that you say it correctly because it's inspired and that's how we're supposed to say it. But explaining it before you make the invitation was important. I learned to understand, I guess, like the Hispanic culture when I was teaching these people. Hispanic people love to have fun, and they're funny, and they have their own type of humor. And like when you get to understand that, and you can, I guess, like fit in with the culture and talk to them, then you can really connect with them. I mean, I'm just, in general, I'm a type of person that likes to have fun and be funny and say funny things. I mean, as a missionary, you're supposed to be serious, but I mean, at some points in the lesson, you can be funny. And as long as that doesn't drive away the spirit, it really helps. For me, I saw it really helped my investigators connect with me and with the lesson that I was teaching them. When it comes to being Spanish speaking in the United States, I mean, I spent most of my time speaking English because most of my companions were from America. So when you're just in the apartment or you're walking around, it's really hard to like be diligent and be like, okay, we're only going to speak Spanish. I mean, we would say that and then not do it. But the more diligent you can be in continually speaking Spanish, the better your Spanish will be. Like I said earlier that it took me about 9 months to feel like I was fluent in Spanish. One of the missionaries I trained, he was in the MTC for 9 weeks, and he came to the field and he spoke like he wasn't a new missionary. He spoke like he had been out in the field for 9 months because he worked so hard in the MTC. But that work ethic also applies to the mission field, as far as your personal language study that you have. But there were times on my mission when I didn't put as much focus in my Spanish study, that I could tell like I wasn't learning Spanish as well as I could have been. And same thing goes to your spiritual personal study in the scriptures. If you don't really try and have a good experience, then it'll affect your teaching as a missionary. Same thing with your Spanish. If you don't really try to learn Spanish, then you won't. Yeah, so just work hard at learning Spanish. It will be frustrating, and you won't understand what everyone's saying right away, and a lot of things will go over your head, but with time and with good practice, you'll be able to learn Spanish. So I'll share a story about two of our investigators, Roberto and Dora. So we, the night before when we were planning, we felt like we should go to this specific neighborhood, and so we were just walking down the street, and this neighborhood was very poor. It was ghetto. And so we were just walking down the street, and Roberto and Dora had just come out of their house. And so we went up and we contacted them, and we're talking to them, and they invited us in. And so we go in their house, and their electricity had just been shut off because they didn't have money to pay the bill. They didn't have any food because they didn't have money for it. Roberto had been looking for a job, and he kept getting like really short part-time jobs that didn't last very long. So he was looking for work. So I went in and I was like, wow, this is really difficult. Like, they don't have power, they don't have food. Even though they were struggling, they still had us come in and sit down and talk to them, and they offered us water. We found out later that right before they walked out of the house and saw us, they had actually prayed for God to send someone to help them. And so they said that prayer, walked out of the house, and saw us. And that was a really cool thing to learn. And they were really amazing people. We had a great time teaching them. And I left the area before they ended up being baptized because they weren't married. So that was one of those instances where they had been married to someone else and had to be divorced first, and that was expensive. And but it was really Roberto and Dora really taught me the importance of faith. That even though their circumstances were so bad, even though Roberto didn't have a job and that they were gonna get evicted, which they were, and ended up living with Dora's sister in their basement. They still had faith, and they still knew that everything would work out. And that wasn't something that we taught them. We helped strengthen that faith, but they already knew that before we showed up. And I could tell when the very first time in their dark little kitchen, when we were drinking our glasses of water that they gave us, I knew that these people had amazing faith, and that faith carried them. And that was really amazing to me. Me having grown up, I never had my electricity turned off, and I never went without food. My dad maybe went without a job for a year and a half, and that was the biggest struggle. As far as not having a job, that was the biggest struggle I had seen. But these people whose situation was so much worse, yet they had faith that it would work out, and that was really inspiring to me. And just in general, the work ethic of the Hispanic population is amazing. Not only do they have faith, not only are they really humble people, but they work hard because they know that hard work is important. They don't try to beat around the bush or get away with cutting corners. They work.